So I was scrolling on YouTube today and I saw this video. Oh, I didn't see it yet. I saw the title, the thumbnail. Haida, Indigenous Vikings of Canada. And I was like, interesting. When were there Vikings of Canada? Obviously, the Leif Erikson and all that happening, of course. But what is this? Let's listen, let's react, let's see what we got.
By the video subscription service Wondrium. Just stick around at the end and I'll share my personal documentary recommendation.
Of course, History Dose. Great channel. Go subscribe to it. So we're in 1789 at the birth of the Republic, basically. The Republic, the United States, almost. Well, I guess we are.
Chief Koya remembered well the time before the arrival of the ships. The one now anchored beyond his village flew American colors. Men and women loaded the canoes with otter skins as they did and went out to trade. On deck, Koya and the party met the esteemed Captain John Kendrick, the former naval hero of the American Revolutionary War. In the course of their bartering, he accused the villagers of stealing minor personal items from the ship. So he had Chief Koya chained by the leg and threatened to kill him unless the items were returned. And then he punished him. He took Koya, tied a rope around his neck, whipped him, painted his face, cut off his hair, took away from him a great many skins, and turned him ashore. Kendrick sailed off, no doubt unaware of the force he had provoked.
Interesting. I wonder where this is taking place, too.
Europeans had not reached this archipelago, later known as Haida, until 1774.
Okay, so we're on the East Coast, or sorry, the West Coast, like British Columbia.
Here the Haida people had reigned for millennia as a dominant naval power. The bones of their forebears had been laid to rest upon these islands for over 10,000 years. Passed through a line of elders, their oral traditions remembered the days when ice covered the land. These ancient words imparted values and professed a spiritual connection to the beasts of the islands, orca whales, eagles, and ravens among them.
Okay, so this place must have been inhabited since the I forget what the event's called, but basically during the Ice Age, right? The last Ice Age, where the Bering Strait allowed people to walk across, but there's obviously people here long before that. But most of Canada was like a glacier, and there was just like a little corridor to get through towards the plains of North America. But I'm guessing this area was kind of like a isolated, echo-chambered location where people still lived.
It had been a divine raven, some said, who released the first humans from a shell. The Haida were thus bound to the ocean, which sustained them not only with food, but wealth. In enormous cedar canoes, the Haida would traverse 60 miles or more of ocean to trade with or attack surrounding peoples. They went ashore clad in sea lion hide and wooden armor. Villages were swiftly brought low by their spears, arrows, clubs, and daggers. The Haida took prized loot and captives as slaves, and returned in glory to their home islands. The tradition of lightning coastal raids would prompt scholars to liken this people to the feared Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it. It feels... That's a great metaphor. That is... Yo, that is cool. That is cool.
Indeed, Haida oral tradition recorded the dread of their enemies, who wondered, what manner of a people is this, that they do not even fear death, these Haidas?
Just like the Vikings.
Relative peace and safety were thus sporadically broken by battles against similarly armored coastal peoples, each conflict variously motivated by a desire for loot, vengeance for lost kin, and insults. The Haida would not cower before the presence of strange ships, nor leave unpunished the shaming of Chief Koya. After 2 years, Captain Kendrick had returned, and this time Koya went aboard with his men and women, and at the outset of trading they drew daggers and seized control of the gun chests. Reinforcing canoes streamed from the shoreline to a chorus of war songs. Koya pointed to his leg and dared Captain Kendrick to place him in chains again. The captain pleaded for peace. And then, a few of his crew broke out from the cabin with guns. The Haida scattered, leaping to their canoes or swimming toward the shore. Kendrick's crew chased them in their armed boats, making the most dreadful havoc by killing all they came across. Roughly 50 dead. Koya had lost his wife, 2 children, and his status, for the authority of Haida chiefs was not absolute but continuously earned. The people in the many villages of Haida Gwaii were stratified into nobles, commoners, and slaves. Ancestral lines were traced through mothers, and town chiefs could be men or women.
And that's how it usually was. Even though in the northeast United States, it was more of a matriarchy.
Yet lineal and clan bonds needed to be forged and renewed, often at ceremonial gatherings called potlatches. There people danced, songs were sung, and the nobles displayed status by giving away wealth, for it was honor, bravery, and above all generosity that attracted followers, and in turn conferred legitimacy on Haida leaders. Consecutive defeats had tarnished Koya's standing among his people. A similar disaster had occurred far across the sea in the Hawaiian Islands. An American ship anchored at a village, and Captain Simon Metcalf beckoned the men and women to trade. Metcalf had earlier lost one of his men to natives elsewhere on Maui, and so when the unsuspecting villagers paddled
Yo, that is an insane image right there.
out, he unleashed his cannons on them. The shredded remains of over 100 people lingered in the tide, and Metcalf sailed off. Subjects of the rising King Kamehameha of Hawaii would soon after kill the crew of another ship captained by Metcalf's son, taking one prisoner and then abducting one of Simon Metcalf's sailors. Simon Metcalf made no rescue attempt, rather he fled to China to trade. In 1794 he appeared in the gray waters beyond Koya's village. The Haida duly paddled out with their pelts, went aboard, and began to trade. Metcalf was outnumbered, and the Haida had noticed. The warriors drew their daggers, stabbed Metcalf to death, and killed every one of the crew, save for one sailor who had climbed into the rigging. They spared him and ransomed him later. Such victories, hailed as retribution for the actions of other white traders, granted Haida combatants prestige and might.
It's crazy because it seems like it's like a continuation of like, I'm not trying to draw like a comparison here to like coincide them along each other, but it's almost like gang warfare. You know, one gang fights another, takes somebody's life, and then retribution akin to that happens later on. Maybe it's not 1-to-1. Maybe it's not even to the same people, but it's to the same concept, to the same peoples. In retrospect to Metcalf or Kendrick, it seems like it's more derived to like the people and how the archetype of those people. And we're going to the persona, the archetype, whatever. The persona of these traders have done this to us in the past. Well, let's be opportunistic. You can't defend it. It's just neutral. It's like a net zero. It's a neutral affair. Because the original premise of this video is like the chief was alleged that he stole, and he was like, did he steal? Like that's where the justice was kind of like the genesis of this injustice or justice started, and we'll never know.
The following year, when a British ship fired on a Haida village, the crew were stunned when the villagers fired back with captured American cannons. The British fled. Such disputes and skirmishes were common. Koya likely died in one such conflict. Nevertheless, neither the Haida nor the British and American traders could deny the value of this commerce. Pelts were procured ever more ambitiously by the Haida, and the corresponding influx of clothing, guns, and iron for tools and weapons brought them material prosperity and military dominance.
And this area is being kind of like segregated between British and American destiny, manifest destiny, right, in the Oregon Territory, and that's what leads to something called the Pig War as well within this area. We did an episode. I don't know, did we do that? I think we did it. Can't remember, but basically, it's off like the coast of Seattle, but this is a little bit, I guess, northwest of that, but it's the same peoples and tribes and cultures, but they're different families of such. Oh, but this is the root. This is the gold. This is the rush right here. The pelts, the beaver pelts, the furs, fur trade.
So began the rise of Haida power. The most splendid and monumental totem poles were raised along the shorelines. Haida warriors crushed underfoot their old enemies, and chiefs bestowed ever greater gifts upon their kin. Yet this path relied on the island's viability as a commodity. Sea otters, once abundant, vanished before the demands of world markets. People, it seemed, were dying out too. Contact brought disease that decimated villages. And commerce was still marred by violence. For every honest trader, there were yet competitors willing to kidnap Haida or raise villages to secure a supply of furs. Outsiders came to mine gold on the islands in the 1850s, and still the Haida would not be conquered. Warriors harassed the miners, seizing their gold in ships. The latter they burned, and they held the crews for ransom.
Wow.
The ancient line of Haida warriors had halted a gold rush. The Royal Navy's commander-in-chief of the Pacific Station was advised by a subordinate. No vessel should be allowed to trade in any part of these waters without being properly armed and manned, and in readiness to defend herself from insidious attacks. It was smallpox that broke the islands in the latter half of the 19th century.
As we see, most cultures decimated from that.
Storied lineages were reduced to scabbed corpses and fevered stragglers. Villages lay forsaken on the water's edge, grown over by the earth, and remembered in the lonesome stare of totem poles. The islands were claimed by the British and subsequently the Canadian government. Inhabited once by a pre-contact population of around 15,000, in 1915 Haida Gwaii counted only 588 people, around 4%. With regard to the survivors, the Canadian government endeavored to eradicate their old language and traditions. The state banned potlatch ceremonies and forced Haida youth into distant and frequently abusive residential schools. The Haida people persisted to see the end of those policies in the...
Yeah, that's in Saskatchewan, which is a whole different... The First Nations of Canada, this is like a... What do you call it? A... Very much a sore spot.
Latter half of the 20th century. Numbers somewhat recovered, and these Haida lived on in the place of their ancestors, and restored frayed connections to the past, to the warriors, totem poles, and songs of a people bound to the ocean. So I learned something that I never knew from the Life of Crazy Horse documentary.
But anyway... What an interesting video. I learned a lot. I didn't even know the Haida people. Now I do. But this is just like an anecdotal piece of true fact, right? Just a sample size of probably what was happening just like crazy all across North America, where opportunism of capitalism breeds competition and atrocities follow. Who knows how this war actually started? To one perspective, one people, their sovereignty is threatened. To another, they believe that these are savages. The truth is probably somewhere in the former. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. I love these types of stories. It gives us a little bit more of a percentage of understanding of the context of the human history. Let me know some recommendations down below. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.